The hot sun beat down mercilessly on Adaku's dark skin as she got off the old and shaky bus onto the dusty ground of Oloibiri. The once rich oil town now looked old and empty, with rusty oil machines standing far away. Adaku fixed her fancy bag, feeling strange in her nice clothes among the local people in their colourful traditional outfits. "Welcome home, city girl," a rough voice called out. Adaku turned to see her grandmother, Mama Diya, walking slowly towards her with a stick. The old woman's wrinkled face smiled big, showing gaps where teeth were missing. Adaku tried to smile. "Mama Diya, it's good to see you." She bent down to hug the small woman, smelling the familiar scent of palm oil and herbs on her grandmother's clothes. "Ah, my chi has brought you back to us at last," Mama Diya laughed, touching Adaku's cheek with a rough hand. "Come, come. The village wants to see how their little Adaku has grown." As they walked through the village, people stared at them. Kids pointed and whispered, while older people nodded politely. Adaku felt a bit bad. She hadn't visited her family's home in over 10 years. "Things have changed, Mama Diya," Adaku said, looking at the old buildings and overgrown paths. "The oil company promised so much when they came. What happened?" Mama Diya looked upset. "Greed happened, my child. The company took what they wanted and left us with nothing but dirty water and unhappy spirits." Adaku frowned. "Spirits? Mama Diya, surely you don't still believe in those old stories?" The old woman stopped quickly, looking hard at Adaku. "Some things are older than the oil under our feet, Adaku. Some things should not be bothered." She pointed to a path going into the thick forest. "The river knows. The river remembers." Adaku felt scared, even though it was hot. She shook her head, trying to ignore the feeling. She was a good lawyer from Lagos who went to school in other countries. She didn't have time for village talk and old stories. As they got close to Mama Diya's small house, they heard loud noises from a nearby hut. A woman was crying loudly, and men were shouting angrily. Adaku started to move towards the sound, but Mama Diya grabbed her arm tightly. "Not your problem, child," Mama Diya warned. "Chidi's wife lost another baby, the third this year." Adaku's eyes got big. "That's awful. Shouldn't we help? Maybe I could get her to see a doctor in the city." Mama Diya shook her head sadly. "No doctor can help what's wrong with her. The river wants payment for our bad things." Before Adaku could say more, a young man came running down the path, looking very scared. "Mama Diya," he said out of breath. "It's Obioma. He went to the part of the river we're not supposed to go to catch fish. We told him not to, but he didn't listen. Now. "Speak, boy," Mama Diya ordered. The young man swallowed hard. "We found his boat, empty, but there was something in the water, something that wasn't human." Mama Diya said bad words quietly, saying quick prayers that Adaku couldn't understand. The old woman turned to her granddaughter, her old eyes looking scared and strong. "Adaku, you picked a good time to come home," Mama Diya said in a serious voice. "The spirits are angry, and the Mami Wata is getting brave. We will need all the help we can get." Adaku started to argue, to say there must be a normal reason for what was happening, but she couldn't speak when she heard a scary, not human scream from the direction of the river, making birds fly away into the sky. For the first time since she'd arrived, Adaku felt a little doubt in her mind. What if the old stories were true? What if there really was something in the water that couldn't be explained? As the sun started to go down, making long shadows across the village, Adaku realized that her trip home was going to be much more difficult and dangerous than she ever thought. When it got dark in Oloibiri, the village became very quiet. Adaku moved around on her thin bed, feeling like someone was watching her. The usual sounds of bugs and night animals were strangely missing. A quiet knock on her door made her sit up fast. "Adaku?" Mama Diya's voice called out. "Are you awake?" Adaku used her phone's light to find the door. She opened it to see her grandmother standing there, holding a small oil lamp and a little cloth bundle. "Mama Diya? What's wrong?" Adaku asked, trying not to yawn. The old woman walked into the room, putting the lamp on a wobbly table. "We must get you ready, child. The Mami Wata is restless tonight. Adaku let out a big breath and touched her hair. Mama Diya, please. It's late, and I have to talk to my work people in the morning. Can't this wait? Mama Diya looked at her with serious eyes. Your fancy work friends can't help you here, Adaku. Now sit down. Adaku sat on the edge of her bed, even though she didn't want to. Mama Diya started to open a cloth package. Inside were some odd things: shells, dried plants, and a small bottle with dirty-looking river water. These will keep you safe, Mama Diya said, giving Adaku a string of shells. Wear them all the time, especially when you're near water. Mama Diya put some smelly stuff on Adaku's forehead and said quiet words. Then they heard a loud yell from far away. Both of them stopped moving. What was that? Adaku asked very quietly. Her heart was beating fast. Mama Diya's old face looked worried. The river is calling again. Before Adaku could respond, hurried footsteps approached her hut. A young woman burst in, her eyes wide with panic. Mama Diya, come quickly! It's Emeka! She's gone to the river! Mama Diya cursed, grabbing her walking stick. Foolish girl! Adaku, come! We must hurry! Adaku found herself being pulled along, her feet struggling to keep up as they ran through the dark village. Other villagers came out of their homes, some holding machetes or old rifles. As they got close to the river, Adaku gasped. The usually dirty water seemed to glow with a strange blue light, and there, in the middle of the river, stood a figure. Emeka! Someone shouted. Come back! The young woman in the water didn't respond. She stood still, waist deep in the glowing water, her back to the shore. We must get her out, Adaku insisted, moving towards the water, but Mama Diya's strong grip held her back. Listen, the old woman hissed, and then Adaku heard it, a haunting melody that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The song was beautiful, yet there was something very wrong about it, like fingernails scraping against her soul. Emeka began to move, walking deeper into the river. The villagers cried out in alarm, but no one dared enter the water. What's happening to her? Adaku demanded, struggling against her grandmother's grip. Mama Diya's voice was heavy with sorrow. The Mami Wata has chosen her. There is nothing we can do now. As if in response to Mama Diya's words, the glowing water began to churn. Emeka let out a blood-curdling scream as something dragged her under the surface. For a moment, all was still. Then, a figure rose from the water where Emeka had been. At first glance, it appeared to be a beautiful woman with long, flowing hair. But as it turned to face the shore, Adaku recoiled in horror. Its eyes were pitch black, its mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth. The lower half of its body was that of a massive fish, scales glittering in the eerie light. The creature, the Mami Wata, fixed its gaze on the villagers gathered on the shore. Its mouth opened impossibly wide, and a sound emerged that was part shriek, part song. Several villagers collapsed, clutching their ears in agony. Adaku felt her grandmother pressing something into her hand, a small pouch filled with herbs. Throw it, Mama Diya commanded. Into the water! Without thinking, Adaku hurled the pouch towards the Mami Wata. As it hit the water, a blinding flash erupted, accompanied by a furious roar. When Adaku's vision cleared, the river had returned to its normal murky state. The Mami Wata was gone, but so was Emeka. As the stunned villagers began to disperse, Adaku turned to her grandmother. What was that thing? Mama Diya's eyes were filled with a mixture of fear and resignation. That, my child, is what happens when the balance is disturbed. The Mami Wata has guarded these waters for centuries, but the greed of men has poisoned her domain. Now, she seeks vengeance. Adaku shook her head, struggling to process what she'd witnessed. But why? Why is this happening now? Mama Diya began to lead her back towards the village. Come, Adaku, there is much you need to know. The story of the Mami Wata is long and dark, and I fear you have a larger role to play in it than either of us realized. As they walked away from the river, Adaku couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes were watching her every move. The Mami Wata's haunting song echoed in her mind, a siren call that threatened to pull her into a world she didn't understand and wasn't sure she was prepared to face. The following morning, Adaku sat in a daze as Mama Diya prepared a bitter herbal tea. The events of the previous night felt like a surreal nightmare, but the haunted looks on the villagers' faces told her it had been all too real. "Drink," Mama Diya commanded, pushing a steaming cup into Adaku's hands. "It will clear your mind and protect you from the Mami Wata's song." Adaku took a sip, grimacing at the taste. "Mama Diya, I need answers. What's really going on here?" The old woman sighed, settling into a worn armchair. "It began long ago, before the white men came with their drills and promises. Our people lived in harmony with the river and its spirits. The Mami Wata was our protector, blessing us with fish and keeping the waters clean. But that changed," Adaku prompted. Adaku nodded seriously. "The oil company came, offering lots of money. Many people liked what they said, including your father." Adaku's eyes got big. Her father had died when she was little, and she didn't know much about his work with the oil company. "They dug deep holes," Mama Diya said, "in old places that should have been left alone. The water turned black, the fish died, and our children got sick. The Mami Wata got angrier each year." "But why take people who did nothing wrong?" Adaku asked, thinking about Amaka's scared scream. "The spirit wants things to be fair," Mama Diya explained. "For every life the dirty water takes, she takes one back. But she's so angry now, she doesn't care if people are good or bad." Adaku shook her head, trying to understand the scary thing she saw. "We must be able to do something, some way to stop this." Mama Diya's eyes shined. "Maybe. There's an old custom passed down by our people. It's said to have the power to make the Mami Wata happy and fix the river, but it needs a big gift." Before Adaku could ask more, they heard noise outside. They ran to the door and saw angry villagers around a man in nice clothes. "You said we'd be rich," one villager yelled. "Instead, you brought death to us." The man, sweating a lot, held up his hands. "Please, be nice. The company always wanted to help you. If the water is bad, I'm sure we can make a deal." He stopped talking when someone threw dirt at him. The crowd was very angry, showing feelings they had for many years. Adaku stepped forward, wanting to help. "Everyone, please! Fighting won't fix this. Sir, who are you and why are you here?" The man looked at her, happy to see someone calm. "Emeka Okafor, I'm a boss at Niger Delta Oil. I'm here to talk about paying for recent problems." The crowd made an angry sound at his words. Adaku held up her hand to quiet them. "Mr. Okafor, we should talk inside. Mama Diya, can we use your house?" The old woman nodded, but kept looking at Emeka. Inside, Adaku asked, "Mr. Okafor, do you know everything that's happening here?" Emeka looked nervous. "There are stories of strange things. Just silly old tales, I think. Nothing that can't be explained by nature or people being scared together." Adaku leaned close, speaking quietly but strongly. "I saw a woman pulled underwater by something not normal. Your company woke up something old and angry. Money won't fix this." Emeka looked scared now. What are you saying?" "The truth," Adaku said firmly. "What does the company know about these waters? What did they find when they started drilling?